Hello and welcome to a More Perfect Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Winson. Today, we are going to sit down with someone who is running for governor of Colorado. Her name is Carmen Broesder, and we look forward to hearing all about what she hopes to do for the state of Colorado in the 2026 election. Hello, Carmen.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Thank you for having me so much.
Of course, of course. So, the first thing that I want to ask, because, it's kind of a crazy world we live in. What made you decide to run for governor of Colorado?
Right? You'd think maybe I would shoot smaller for my first
Well,
political spot, but I didn't feel like it. I wanted to go for governor, and it's because I actually had a lot of friends ask me that live in Colorado and that are planning to relocate because they've seen a lot of my political activism and they've seen a lot of what I can do in spaces with like a short amount of time. I make maximum impact, and um I'm actually quite excited about the opportunity to help Colorado stay progressive, but in a new way. So if you don't know, I'm sure you probably do, but our two big candidates are Michael Bennet and Phil Weiser. So both of them are different kind of Democrats, right? So you got Michael Bennet. He is a conservative Democrat. He will actually most definitely bend the knee to Trump. So he's going to be somebody that if you want to lose rights in Colorado, that's going to be who we vote for. I know because he's my elected representative for where I live. And so there's some things where he's very publicly stated that he would go along with what Trump says on certain stances. So our second is Phil Weiser, and he is our attorney general that's running. So he is promising, except for unfortunately, like half the state hates him. Like lawyers do good work, but that's hard to get elected from lawyer to president because a lot of times you're doing the things that half the state isn't going to enjoy. And so he steps on lots of toes, and he's got like 1,400 followers on TikTok. So I was looking at our realistic odds of who we're going to have for governor, who are our candidates. And when my friend came to me and said, you might know them, Jasmine Sherman, they ran for socialist with the Unicorn Party for 2024 for president. That candidate came to me and said, I really think that you should run for governor of Colorado. And I went, you know what? I've thought about it because I had told them in secret that I was thinking about it for like way in the future, right? I was thinking about climbing my way up, but they said, sorry, because their pronouns are they said that they would very much want me to run because of the kind of political stance that I have and how I could help Colorado. Because I'm not sure if you've heard, there's somebody near Denver that got string fruited, and there's not much
No.
uh, publicity or change in that, right? And that's where we're continuing to go. So people that are BIPOC want to flee to Colorado, but they want to also feel safe when they flee to Colorado. So they're
Yeah.
asking for change and representation. So that's like one of the longest answers you could probably have, but it's literally, I had 100 reasons to run. So I was like, I have far less reasons to not run than to run. So
Hey, sometimes that's all you need is 100 reasons to run. It's more than
right.
it's more than a lot of other people. So as you decided to run for this position, as you've been talking to people around, what are the important things that people in Colorado are looking for? Because every state is, there are some consistencies across the country, but I've been to Colorado. It's a beautiful state. It is definitely different than a lot of other states. So what kind of things have you found that a lot of people in Colorado are looking for in their next governor?
Well, let's talk about like the universal truth for everybody. Cause like you said, we have the universal truth. We're all poor. The nation, I talked to one man in Denver. He has 4 children. He works 60 hours a week. He still barely feeds himself just to get by. Right. So that's like universal truth, and our truth here in Colorado is that you can be working where you don't even get to attend your kids' school events, and you still don't get to pay all your bills. That's not fair and that's not right, especially for a state like Colorado, where we happen to be a keystone state, is what we like to refer to ourselves as. So, Colorado is where so my job is I'm a network operations center engineer nerd for a water company. I work overnight and I help keep the water on for the pipelines and reservoirs throughout the nation, right?
There you
And
go.
so while I'm doing that, I learned that Colorado is actually an essential part. It controls the whole entire West Coast through these reservoirs and pipelines. So on top of that, we have NORAD and all these other opportunities that we could capitalize on making sure that we stay safe. We keep ourselves safe, less of a target, because they've kind of painted a target on us. So we want to be less of a target. And then the number one thing for Colorado locals, because if we go outside of the big cities and we start talking about where really most people are, which is like where I live, if you look out here, this is rural, right? And if you come out here, people will tell you the farms are getting bought by corporations. The small
Mm,
farmer can't survive anymore. The benefits are ending. Like 175-year-old family farms are in danger and in jeopardy of being lost, even not even sold or something, but lost because they can't even pay property taxes at this point. This is a really systemic issue for Colorado. So my big campaign, what I'm going on is I want to help our small farms. I want to help our rural hospitals stay open. Also, when you go around Colorado, there is some uh, we need to pick up on recycling a little bit and help with making efforts like for example, you can do community art efforts and then also make recycling more rewarding. And I know that sounds interesting, but you can go to my farmandfreedom.us and I have lots of different ways where it describes where we can do that. Where essentially, so I'm autistic and I used my pattern recognition and I went around and I talked to people and I just kept talking to them while I've been here, and I kept seeing the very similar pain points because if we help the farmers, then we get food back on the table. If we help with water rights, then the farmers get to grow more food, right? And then more food goes on our table. And then not only does more food go on to Colorado's table, but then we start to get feeding the nation again instead of everybody being hungry and apples costing $2 for an apple, right? This isn't sustainable. This is what we need to change. So
yeah.
we get back to the basics. We take politics out of being a politician and we go back to serving people like it really should be, helping people get health care, helping people get food, making sure we have equitable access to healthcare, that people that are BIPOC don't have extra steps to getting healthcare. And then also, why are we spending more money and more effort on concentration camps than apartment buildings? This is
Mm,
not something in a housing crisis that we should be doing. We should be looking at supporting people and not punishing them. This
yeah.
is what my whole entire stance is let's go back to helping the people and doing it in sustainable, actionable ways, which is extremely doable. Back in the 1920s to 1940s, Switzerland actually became an economic force from like pauper to prince level, because what they did is they said, I'm going to step outside of the politics. I'm going to let you guys argue, and I'm going to make sure these people can come here and they can get access to healthcare and housing, right? And that's exactly what Colorado can do as the keystone of the nation, because we're in the center. People from all around us battle healthcare laws. So we can continue to be a flagship, do co-op hospitals, start doing partnership hospitals to where it falls within the gray lines of those laws where they aren't referring for an abortion. They're just referring you to an out-of-state hospital, which they have a partnership with and they actually happen to make part of the money from. So they're not just losing their money anymore. They're starting to get some of that money back. There are feasible ways in which we can correct this nation, even under the current political what's going on. So this is where I'm saying let's step away from the politics and go back to serving the people. And as a governor, you actually have the privilege of that. You don't have to go and argue with people in any kind of area. You get to say, no, that doesn't serve the people. The people have said this is what they want. Look at these statistics. I'm voting with my people. I'm supporting my people. I'm doing this executive order to help my people. And that's really what you should be doing as an elected representative already. But I think that we should lead a revolution of changing what politician means, not meaning that you're bought out by some kind of pack, but meaning you actually serve people again.
Obviously, Colorado as a whole leans on the progressive side, but there are definitely some areas that are um, significantly on the conservative side. How have you seen in your going around and talking to people that that division that we've been having in general? In your conversations, do you feel that you're able to bridge that gap between the the conservatives, those that fear, you know, all of the things that many have been taught to fear, especially by this administration, compared to the fears that we're seeing and experiencing for those that you, whether from the BIPOC community, from the LGBTQIA community, things like that.
That's a very valid question because I have encountered some, you know, there's always far left and far right that you won't always totally align with, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. There are some people out here that don't necessarily agree with me as a person, but when they started seeing my campaign points, they had nothing to disagree with. And
Mm,
that's one of the things that, well, obviously, if they read further into the healthcare and maybe into some others, but the big bullet points on the top of the list, they primarily were like, I could agree with that. I could go with that. We really do need that because both the left and right are arguing so much right now that people are getting just tired of it. There reaches a point where, of course, fear motivates people, but fear expires after a certain point. And I think that's where we're starting to reach. And that's why there's songs like the Burn My Hat song and other country songs that are going on right now, because it is inspiring people to step away from what they're being told. There's going to always be some people that aren't going to want to vote for what, like, I'm not here for everybody, but what's surprising is there's over like a 30% independent vote here in Colorado, right?
mhm.
Like there's a large independent purple base. So as much as we are progressive, there are a lot of people that are like me who are like, I'm left, but I'm also 2A with, safety, right? And I've
Mhm.
talked about different gun safety things that people can do as well. So that tends to surprise people on the right. They're like, "So you don't want to
Mm.
take my guns?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to take your guns. I just want safety." Right? And that's where we start having conversations about things, and then honestly, it's a lot of my family that lends me the biggest benefit in this area is because I am one of the only progressive bubbles in an extremely conservative family. My
Mm.
father is a veteran, and so is my grandfather. And then on my mom's side, she is a preacher's wife, and so is my grandmother. So I come from a very heavily religious conservative family. So I'm able to relate to their concerns and understand them and not come from a punitive place, but an understanding place. And that's where I think really lends to understanding and hope for people on all sides of the political party because their right to healthcare is also important. Their right to having access to food is also important. And that's where, at the end of the day, why we want to kind of go with progressive purple, right? I want left leaning, but obviously, I think Colorado is here for a change on all parties. So, but there's always going to be people who aren't going to agree with like abortion stance and other things like that. But they're going to look at the overall agenda I have and see that it is going to serve the people of Colorado in a way that they won't be served by any other politician running right now.
So you talked about farms. I saw
Yes.
that you come from a family of farmers. Um,
Yes.
have things like the tariffs, obviously, the tariffs have affected, I would assume, farmers in Colorado. Has the issues with farmers struggling to keep their farms open, was this a before tariffs thing, or is this really like a it's hitting right now kind of a thing?
Think of it as a compounding problem, right?
Okay.
So there were some issues with seeds being copyrighted and things like, so if seeds go over the fence, then you lose part of your crop and other things. And then there's only certain seeds you can plant this year, and like you can only do this much and you can only yield this much and you have to throw out the extra. There's a lot of punitive laws that we have for farmers already, And then there's a lot of water right concerns in Colorado. That's really where our farmers
Mm.
struggle to be allowed to do things, is because we're, instead of leaning our water to farmers, we're leading them to data centers in an already hot
Mm.
area. And so
Yeah.
we're starting, instead of saying, hey, you need to use like geothermal cooling and other advanced technologies and stop stealing all of our water kind of thing, they're allowing the farmers to be punished for new technology. And that isn't fair for anyone. As a tech nerd, I love the new technology, but let's do it right, right? And we could
Yeah.
make reform and policies that would allow our farmers to keep their water, and even we can do things that will replenish the water table. There's a ton of studies out there, and there's a lot of land that goes unmanaged that actually depletes water tables because they aren't managed right. So we could have people that go out and volunteer and do things like that that could help the water tables grow too. So we don't have to continuously have a deficit in our nature and in our monetary. We can use all of the resources we have and start getting Colorado green again, in both like monetary and in food. Because if we're supplying the nation with food, we're obviously going to start making money. If we are helping supply the bread basket with healthcare, we're obviously going to make money. So we'll be able to give back to the citizens and actually rebuild this beautiful state.
Yeah. It's it's been very interesting for me to see the slow but interesting change going on with a lot of people when it's come to how they're viewing this country. Before even the 2024 election, we have constantly said that we need to figure out ways to come together. We need to figure out we will be able to do more together than we will apart. A lot of the things that we all like to say. Um, I feel like we are experiencing a point now where everyone's just starting to feel the pain. So now they're starting to be more open to the idea. I feel, though, as part of the problem that we have had as a country is there has been a lack of desire to be informed. And how do you see, at least in terms of if you were governor, getting, you know, maybe adjusting that a bit? Because there's always been this problem with politics of there's a group that don't think politics, they don't want to talk politics, they want to wake up, they want to do their thing, they want to go to bed, not really understanding or accepting that politics affects everyone, and you don't really notice it until politics affects you. So how would you go about trying to, I don't know, maybe even just change the way we see politics in at least in your state, if not in the country?
I think we should go back to doing more civics classes. I know that sounds interesting, but not just civics classes from one point of view. I think when we do it, we should do it from both points of view and then have debates. That's how my teacher did it back in the day, right? They would say, all right, this is how the left thinks of it. All right, this
Mm-hmm.
is how the right thinks of it. All right, now let's look at the socialist view. Let's look at the communist view. Let's have a debate about what you feel. And the thing that I loved the most about that was that we all talked about, like, we like this part from this part from this part from this. And you stopped looking at it as left versus right, and you started looking at it as the individual parts that make a whole. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really what changes. And it's not just high school level civic courses. You could do this for like community, like YMCA level stuff, right? Where you get
Mm-hmm.
to go to a community area and go and learn about this, like for free or low cost. And I'm sure that there are a ton of politicians out there and just very educated, college educated people that would go and do those things even for free to help people remove the indoctrination. Really what the core part of our problem is our education and our reading comprehension level. How do we expect for people to read and understand these laws when their comprehension level is half of what it takes to understand the full concepts of it? So they're getting controlled by a system that they were never taught to understand. And really,
Mm.
how is that different from indentured servitude? We need to help people get outside of that mindset that they aren't worth actually having the education and letting them have the education that they want, but while also seeing the other side. I'm getting close to my
Yeah.
charger if you wonder why I'm going inside.
So I've been hearing from a lot of people that accountability and responsibility are also very high on the list of importance for a lot of people, especially with our current situation where there's an extreme lack of trust in politicians, both state level and federal level. How are you going about trying to um, combat that, for not only for you, but how do you hope to combat that statewide?
We need to bring transparency back. And the system in Colorado, to say that they just stopped updating it would be the kindest way to put it. So, as somebody who's been going through, like, so I went through the whole entire state when I came and I moved here. I wanted to figure out what part I loved the most. So, I literally did a Colorado tour. There's not a county that I did not visit while I was while driving around. And when I was doing that, I was also checking the zoning laws because of a some property that I want to own, right? And I found out that at least half of the counties in Colorado are primarily paperwork focused. You cannot find things digitally online. It has conflicting information. You have to go inside and get things with actual physical, like scribble notes in order to get zoned. And it is never easy process because there's no transparency. There have been people who bought land and then sold it because they couldn't get it zoned to use their own land because they couldn't understand the zoning paperwork. That is a catastrophic failure. There was also a man in eastern Colorado who was kicked off his own land because he wasn't using it the way that Colorado wanted, even though it's where it's used in a lot of other places. So there's no uniformity of how you can live on your own land in this state either. Now, while in some areas that can be advantageous, for the bulk of the state, you could have pretty similar rules. That way, somebody doesn't go 3 miles that way and get penalized for a rule that wasn't that way, or at least some more transparency. I have a very good friend here that has been a Colorado native her whole entire life. She's Indigenous and she's from the Pueblo area. And she said that was one of the hardest concerns to moving over to this area was the fact of the kind of less transparency. So the number one thing we could do for Colorado is make the systems be transparent, that you can go and find the forms online, that you have clear directions, basic things that we would ask from our employers, from corporations, or what the government asks for any person to do, basically anything. We're going to ask the same thing from the government. And I can tell you, people will be so much happier and things will move along so much faster. And the state will get more revenue from taxes, from land sales, from people being able to actually utilize their land. There's really no deficit in bringing transparency back. And that will build trust back with our elected representatives because they'll be able to see where the money is going and they'll be able to see this form and I think that would be really the most revolutionary thing we could do across the whole US is bring transparency back because they're trying to hide things. Every side, left and right, wants and middle wants, you know, transparency.
Yeah. Um, I'm assuming, based on some of the content that I have seen from you before, that you are all for the idea of taking money out of politics.
I'm not going to be with any pack. I'm good. And so far, I'm doing most of my stuff grassroots. So getting volunteers, things like that. So it's going to be a no pack race. So you see my number one donating firm is like GoFundMe. I'm going to do with the Act Blue and other things too soon, but I'm going old school. I think we should really, if people really want to see the change, they have to be the change, right?
Hmm.
And so our number one, Michael Bennett, he's an APAC guy, right? Now, Phil Weiser, I have to say, he doesn't take money from PACs allegedly. That's his statement, right? But he is pro-Israel, so there's that caveat that exists for leftists, right?
If you could give one message to anyone in Colorado that was trying to decide uh, who they would consider voting for, um, what would be your message to them?
I would say let's go ahead and put the control back into the people. Where if you look at the candidates and you see their stances, look at who is wanting to help the people the most. And you'll see that I am wanting to help people have co op farms, co op hospitals, co op most infrastructure. So that way, what you're paying into, you get rewards back from if you want. And that way, we can save our state by making it equitable, which I can't think of a better way to help everyone. And that's if you ask the people in Colorado, they're struggling to survive. It's almost unlivable in many areas. There are people literally living in tents here. We really need to focus on supporting the people. And I want to take the politics out of being a politician. And I don't see uh, any other governor candidate doing that.
How do you see the governor's place in the country?
In a country, well, we can create alliances, right? And that's one of the biggest things that I want to do is because as you can see, Washington, Oregon, and California has created an alliance. The reason they didn't create an alliance with us is because Jared Polis is not necessarily the most progressive Democrat, right? And we're going from that to an even less progressive Democrat, most likely, unless people decide to pick one that will actually join alliances with the blue states and let us create a cross country infrastructure for healthcare access that will also deplete resources less from some of these states that have collapsing healthcare infrastructure. And their hospitals aren't closing due to lack of demand, but lack of support and having to push it to other cities. So that way, that maternal wing has to close. So you got to go over there because they can't sustain and they couldn't legally turn away so many patients, that sort of thing. That
Mhm.
problem is happening across the United States in blue states too, because nobody is looking at how to connect the East Coast to the West Coast. And if you look at the states that are best to connect, it would be Colorado and New Mexico. So we should really look at creating a coalition of these states so that way it could be an equitable coalition of healthcare and just autonomy.
There is obviously a lot of things that many people would consider unhinged going on nationally right now, especially in states like Oregon and Illinois and Washington, D.C. and Tennessee. Do you see a place for Colorado in even in its current situation, but even in um, the leading of and healing of the nation once we are hopefully past the current administration?
Yes. So I am actually building in Southwest Colorado a refuge for people that are needing to flee because of those oppressive laws. That's one of my side endeavors with activism that I do. And we just today, that's why I look so tired, is I just signed the closing on a house that we'll be able to have people come and flee to safety to today. And it
Mm,
makes me so teared up because if you knew how many like domestic abuse victims, how many LGBTQIA people, how many people that are here with legal status but are worried about what the government may do to them anyway. And like a whole variety of people have been just waiting for us to open one of these locations because we have right now two active week boondocking free in Costilla County that we give to people in emergent need.
mhm.
So I've been actively already doing that, helping people flee. I want to say at this current point, we've helped thousands, and that's
Wow.
a very low number. And then we've created communities to actually help people have equitable access to housing. So when I say I know I can do this, I've done it, right? And so when as just a regular little citizen with not much money but a whole lot of hope, I kept moving forward. And when you can see pattern recognition like I do, because I've been technically diagnosed as a savant with pattern recognition, so I have like around a 162 IQ. I get to have a benefit of being able to look and have like partial eidetic memory, get to see words in the sky. It's a whole lot of fun. And so that helps me actually like look at bills and laws and find solutions in ways where other people, their brain doesn't work like mine. And it took me a
Yeah.
very long time to realize that, because I thought everybody else was walking around with like this pattern recognition capability. And eventually I was like, oh, so this isn't normal. Got it. And I thought, why don't we, as the people, if you knew about how autistic people, we actually built the nation. If you knew behind the scenes, we built the infrastructure from roads to bridges to internet to skyscrapers. That hyper focus, that dedication, that is almost always spectrum of some sort, autism, ADHD. So when we're looking at restoring the nation in a time of great distress, who would you rather restore it? People that have kind of like their band-aid stickering things and throwing spaghetti at the wall and like this might help, or people that were like, I actually built this infrastructure. So to give you
Mm.
context for myself, I helped I've done every layer of internet. I was a certified wireless network administrator. I'm currently a certified wireless network technician. So I have done every layer of internet. So I know how it helps our power, our water, our electricity, everything. So if you want an educated leader that knows how to also prevent like cyber attacks and things like that, I think that is actually even more important than people take into account, because we're in a almost cyber war at this current time with other countries. So protecting yourself against that, I think, is astronomical as well.
So you're saying that unlike our senators, if you were in a meeting with tech people, you wouldn't be asking what Wi-Fi was.
No, nope.
No.
I can actually. So what's really funny is I can actually identify each. So there's BGYNACAX. I can identify the shape of those frequencies because I've done so much spectrum analysis and site
Wow.
surveys that when I see those, I can actually be like, all right, so that's B, that's Bluetooth, that's this, that's a baby monitor, that's a house phone, right? So that's where I've done it enough. That's how my brain works. And so
Yeah.
that's where people come to me to solve things that normally would take them about 3 hours to solve. It takes me about
Mm.
5 minutes because my brain just sees the pattern of what's wrong and takes all the little parts and says it's this. Like if you've seen The Good Doctor, that's me with internet and legal stuff.
Oh. Well, that's pretty amazing. Um, Carmen, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you if they want to know more about your campaign, know more about you, know more about how they can support you?
Yes. So my name is Carmen Brewster. I'm running for governor for Colorado for 2026. If you could please go to my website, farmandfreedom.us. If you want to support, there is a hyperlink at the top that says donate. It'll jump to our GoFundMe, and that does go straight to my campaign committee. We have everything set up 100% legal, and we appreciate any support. We're going to start gathering signatures in January so that way we can officially be on the ballot, just like every other candidate. That's when they can start too. So we're going to start with them if you wanted to sign up to volunteer and help too.
There you go. Carmen, thank you again for hanging out with me and letting us know what you hope to do for the people of Colorado in 2026. I look forward to seeing uh, this campaign grow, and hopefully we can bring you back and I can say hello, Madam Governor.
That would be wonderful. And I know this is cheesy. I'm going to say this at the very end. Do you know why I wore this shirt? I know this
No.
is very, so both this and this, they're both about 50, 60 years old. So I just want to say
Wow.
that I can take care of good things because this was my grandmother's, my mother's, my aunt's, then mine for both
Wow.
this and this. And so I feel like that is a testament to someone being able to be responsible, is that you can actually keep care of your things.
Yeah. There you
I
go.
know that's cheesy, but it's
No,
a
I think
thing.
it's really cool. I definitely don't have anything that has lasted 50 or 60 years. So that's pretty amazing. that also shows how well things were made 50 or 60 years ago compared to today,
It
probably.
really
But
does.
for everyone that has made it this far, again, make sure you check out her campaign and support if you're able. At minimum, you can find her. We'll put links to the website. We'll put links to her TikTok, so you can support her that way if that's what you want to do. And for everyone that made it, please consider supporting this channel. What we try and do here is make a place where we are a consortium, a community of people that are trying to make the world better. We're trying to learn. We don't know everything. We want a place where all people, no matter your race, religion, gender, or identity, get rights, respect, dignity, and safety. And that is what we're trying to do here. So if it's something that you want to be a part of, please consider liking and subscribing and help us grow this movement to something where we can hopefully make a better world for us, for our kids, and for our kids' kids. Again,
Great.
Carmen, thank you for being here, and we will see you all next time on a More Perfect Podcast. Bye, guys.